The change became impossible to ignore. I started noticing the silences between us were louder than the conversations. Ryan began locking his phone. No more shared playlists. No more random pictures of his lunch. One evening, I borrowed his iPad to check something. A message preview popped up. Just a name. V. My stomach dropped. I opened it. Can't stop thinking about the other night. Same time tomorrow. My breath caught. Victoria. I stared at the message, hoping it was a different V, some old friend or random contact. But when I tapped on it, the thread opened and removed all doubt. Pictures, flirty messages, mentions of how close she almost caught us. My mother, my husband. My hand shook. I put the iPad down like it burned. When Ryan walked in, I asked him directly, "Are you cheating on me?" He laughed, not a nervous laugh, a genuine one. "Are you serious?" I didn't answer. He looked me straight in the eyes and said, "You're imagining things." Gaslighting 101. He walked away. I didn't follow. I didn't sleep that night. I stared at the dark, my mind reeling. The next day, I visited Jenna. I told her everything. She didn't look surprised. "You need proof," she said, "because people like them don't confess. They manipulate." So I waited. 3 days later, Victoria came by while Ryan was working late. She wore too much perfume and brought wine. I declined. She poured herself a glass and commented on how tired I looked. I asked her when she last saw Ryan. She tilted her head and smiled. "Why?" I stared her down and said, "Because I know." The smile didn't drop. Instead, she raised her glass and said, "Then what's the point in asking?" I stood there stunned. She didn't deny it. She didn't apologize. Just sipped her wine, calm and composed. "He's more of a man than you ever saw," she said. I slapped the glass from her hand. It shattered. She flinched for the first time. That night, Ryan didn't come home. He didn't text, didn't call. The silence said, I used to believe love was simple. You meet someone, build trust, get married, and everything falls into place. That's how it felt with Ryan. We met at a gallery, of all places. He liked how I interpreted abstract art, said I made things complicated in a beautiful way. That line stayed with me. For 2 years, he was thoughtful, predictable, gentle in a way calm seas are, steady, familiar, safe. But lately something shifted. He stopped looking me in the eyes when I spoke. Conversations became short, forced. He used to leave little notes for me in the kitchen, sometimes a single word like smile or coffee. They stopped one day, and I couldn't remember when exactly. My mother, Victoria, had started coming over more often, said she missed home life, though she never liked staying anywhere too long. She was the kind of woman who drew attention just by walking into a room, always perfectly dressed, always one glass of wine away from oversharing. At first, I thought her presence was helping, maybe giving us a buffer, lightening things up. But then I noticed how she laughed a little too hard at Ryan's jokes, how he smiled back just a second too long. I told myself it was nothing, because who would even think of that? One evening, I came home early from work. Ryan was in the kitchen, 2 glasses on the counter. One had lipstick on the rim, my mother's favorite wine bottle, half empty. I asked casually, did Mom stop by? He nodded, yeah, just for a bit, without looking up. I laughed, mostly to cover the knot forming in my chest. Something didn't feel right, but I didn't want to be the paranoid wife. Later that night, Jenna called. We talk weekly, usually to vent or gossip, but she noticed my tone. I brushed it off, and she paused before saying, you trust him too much. That's not always a good thing. I didn't respond. I didn't want to believe that trust could be a weakness. That night, I watched Ryan sleep. Peaceful, mouth slightly open, hand over my waist. The guilt crept in like rot, quiet but steady, spreading through everything. I couldn't look Daniel in the eyes. Every word felt like a lie. Every movement rehearsed. I kept my distance, stayed in my room, cleaned things that didn't need cleaning, avoided mirrors. When I did catch my reflection, I barely recognized the woman looking back, flushed with shame, hollow with confusion. Richard came home that evening, kissed my cheek, asked how things had been. I nodded, smiled, pretended. He didn't notice the hesitation in my voice, the stiffness in my arms. He talked about meetings, traffic, someone's retirement party. I nodded again, kept pouring his coffee, trying not to crumble. Daniel acted normal, polite. Nothing in his tone gave us away. But the way he looked at me when Richard wasn't watching, it pulled something in my chest tight. I wanted to scream at him to stop, to forget, to disappear. But I couldn't say a word, because part of me didn't want him to stop. At night, I lay awake beside my husband, barely breathing. Daniel's hand still lived in my skin. His voice echoed in my head. I thought it would fade. It didn't. It deepened. The wrongness clung to me like a second skin, But underneath, it was something worse. What? I tried to convince myself it was over, that it was one night, one lapse in judgment. But then Daniel caught me alone. He didn't touch me. He didn't even stand too close. He just said he missed me, that he didn't regret it, that he couldn't stop thinking about me. I told him not to say things like that. He just nodded. But the way he looked at me said everything he didn't. I snapped at Richard during dinner over nothing. He blinked, caught off guard. I apologized immediately, but I could feel the tension building. My lies were cracking at the edges. I stopped answering calls, ignored texts. I was slipping, drowning, and I couldn't pretend anymore. Then it happened. Richard found a note, a short, stupid note Daniel had written and never given. It started with silence, the kind of silence that grows louder with every passing day, like a wall that thickens between two people who once couldn't get enough of each other. Richard and I used to laugh, talk, touch. Now we were just two people sharing a house. No glances across the table, no warmth in his voice. I would cook dinner and he'd eat distractedly, barely noticing whether I was there. I tried. I wore that dress he once loved, put on the lipstick he used to call trouble, but his eyes never lifted from his phone. He was always working, always away, even when he was home. I began to feel invisible. Daniel came back from college for the summer. I practically raised him since he was 14. He used to be awkward, sweet, all elbows and attitude. But when he walked through that door, I saw a man. Tall, confident, smiling in that easy, unbothered way only someone young and unaware of consequence can. I shouldn't have noticed, but I did. He hugged me like he meant it, asked how I'd been, told me I looked good, really good, and there was no hesitation in his tone. I laughed it off, brushing it away like a stray leaf on my shoulder. Still, that night, I stared too long in the mirror. That compliment stayed with me longer than it should have. Richard left again 2 days later. New York, business meeting, back in 4 days. I didn't ask questions. He didn't offer details. We were used to this dance. But that night, Daniel and I sat on the back porch. We talked, really talked for the first time in years. He told me about college, his dreams, the girl who broke his heart. I told him how the house felt too big now, how I missed being needed. He looked at me differently, not in a childish way, not like a son. It was subtle, but it unsettled me. His gaze lingered, like he was trying to read the parts of me I kept hidden. I told myself he was just being kind, attentive, but my heart betrayed me. I began to wait for his footsteps in the morning, for the way he said my